That is not the purpose. That is not the purpose of this particular broadcast tonight. If you have a specific question about the program America, then please ask it. Otherwise, we're going to cut that mic off. Go ahead.
I charge that the program America was hateful propaganda. Your program, ABC News Nightline, for instance, never asked, should we or should we not build SDI? It always asks, can we or can't we? I see in your program always a dissemination of what our administration is trying to get us to buy. And for instance, in the middle of ABC News programs, there is a commercial campaign by the General Electric Company that always sings, GE, we bring good things to life. Even if in one format of the commercial, you see a worker whistling as he's walking by a missile over his left shoulder. And in any analysis of it, death is not a good thing to bring to life.
All right.
I submit to you, Mr. Cobb.
No, I submit to you, sir, that we've had enough of the speech now, and we've just cut your mic off. I did give you an opportunity to ask a question. You haven't done it. Reed Irvine, please go to yours.
Thank you. Ted, I first of all want to congratulate Brandon Stoddard for picking up an excellent idea by Ben Stein and doing this series. However, I regret, Mr. Stoddard, that you turned it over to a man who said that he thought the whole idea was absurd and repugnant, and who succeeded in sabotaging it beyond all belief, both artistically and in terms of content. But having said that, I would like to suggest another idea for you.
Let me suggest, Reed, that the appropriate format here is that you ask a question now, and if you want to make it a critical question, by all means go ahead, but forgive me, I'm not going to sit here tonight and let you give another speech, so please ask your question.
I'm going to suggest an idea to Mr. Stoddard, and perhaps to Mr. Turner. I'd like Ambassador Kirkpatrick to comment on it. And that is, since this film has been so severely criticized as insulting the Soviet Union by suggesting that they might occupy us, I'd like to propose that ABC recoup by doing a sequel showing what it would be like if the United States occupied the Soviet Union. Now let's take this 10 years after, just as you've done here, based on our actual performance in Germany and Japan after World War II, where we imposed upon those countries
Reed, I think
freedom of speech,
freedom
of press,
I think we've got the thrust
of enterprise,
I think we've got the thrust. I think we have the thrust of the idea.
All of these things.
The idea is freedom. We have that, and Reed, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told the gentleman over here.
No, I want to know, would they be willing to do this, and would be very
That's fine. In that case,
Turner.
Let me ask you just to be quiet long enough so that we can give each of them an opportunity to respond to your proposal. That's it, Reed. Now, Ms. Kirkpatrick, do you want to respond?
I don't think so.
Fine.
I'm in the business of running television shows.
Okay. Let me, Mr. Turner, then, the suggestion is that we create yet another broadcast, that this one somehow show what the Soviet Union would be like under an American occupation. You want to see this go on?
I'd like to see us do a broadcast of how we cooperate in space and how we can end the arms race and live in peace and harmony in this world. And that's the kind of program I'd like to do, not more about invading each other. I think we've had enough invasions. That's time to be friends, not to be invading each other.
All right, Brandon Stoddard, what Reed Irvine had to say about the initial proposal for the program, it was kind of a reaction to the day after. And indeed, Ben Stein did suggest, how about doing a program on what the United States would be like following a Soviet occupation. Now, you have the stomach for another one of these? We could make a whole series out of them.
I don't know, Ted. I mean, I was a lot taller when these began, so I really don't know about that. First of all, let's talk about, because I'd like to clarify something which has been in American television mythology now, I think, for several years, which is that America is the answer to the day after. Let's start with that. There is only one person who really knows the answer to that question, and that is me. The reason I say that is because I was the one who put the day after into development at ABC. It was my idea. I thought it was an interesting idea to see what happens to a bunch of Americans in the Midwest in the nuclear holocaust. That was the extent of my interest with it. I never felt, ever, that the day after needed to be answered. I never felt that it was left or right or anything. The show never dealt with those positions one way or another in the show. It simply said nuclear holocaust is terrible, very bad for you. The answer, when we did Amerika, it was the same thing. I was interested in one thing, whether it came from Ben Stein or it came from, I don't care where it came from. 6 words came from Ben Stein. The idea that made it work, actually, the 10 years after, came from my wife, who is never mentioned anywhere here. In no way was it an answer. What intrigued me about Amerika, and what I think we have, was a story about people under an occupation and how do they behave, what do they do, how do they think, what happens to their families, what happens to their communities, what happens to their relationship with the communities. And this is the story that I think Amerika is about, and this is the story that will eventually come out after this brouhaha dies, which will be very short.
All right.
Sorry, long speech.
And why, in the day after, did he turn it over to a writer and a director who were both believers in nuclear disarmament, people who thought that this was going to be something, a cause that they could contribute to importantly, and when it came to Amerika, you took this idea and turned it over to a man who didn't believe in the idea at all and had as his leading actor Chris Christopherson, who said last week on Donahue that he believed Mikhail Gorbachev was the most progressive world leader since John Kennedy. Why?
What we did in both cases was to go to the people who we felt were the most effective in making the ideas work. Whatever their personal politics are is totally up to them. What counts is not their politics, but what counts is what goes on the air. That's the only thing that counts.
Well, I hope when you do the sequel I've suggested, you'll turn it over to someone who believes in the idea and believes in democracy.
All right, thank you. We're going to take another break, and we will be back with our final segment with the audience here in Minneapolis in just a moment.